Jungkook drops a shocking confession to his ex at his wedding altar, leaving the entire crowd frozen. What secret was never meant to be heard? You were always the one I loved, even when I chose someone else. The crystal chandeliers trembled slightly, not from an earthquake, but from the ripple of gasps that surged through the grand ballroom. The music had stopped mid-note. The bride's hand, moments ago clutching Jungkook's arm, slowly slid away. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, met his with a question that would never need to be spoken aloud. In that moment, everything shattered. The walls of the Jeon hall, dressed in ivory roses and silk drapes, seemed to close in on the people inside. Cameras caught the awkward shift of guests, some staring in shock, others quickly averting their eyes, as if bearing witness to something too raw, too intimate, too wrong to watch. Jungkook stood still. His breath was steady, but his jaw was clenched like he was bracing for impact. He hadn't planned to say it. God, he hadn't. But there she was, Minji, his ex, sitting 3 rows back in a navy blue dress that didn't belong in a celebration. A dress that made her look like mourning was the only thing she knew how to wear anymore. Their eyes had met just a second too long, and everything he had buried clawed its way to the surface. Minji didn't move. Her face was unreadable. But her fingers trembled in her lap, and Jungkook saw it. She had heard him, and worse, so had everyone else. The bride Harren stood motionless, her veil catching the breeze from the ornate ceiling fan above. There was something cruelly poetic in the way her mascara stayed perfectly intact, while her heart visibly cracked beneath her flawless exterior. She turned slightly, just enough for Jungkook to see the tears she refused to let fall. Jungkook's father stepped forward, clearing his throat with an urgency that betrayed his polished composure. "Perhaps we should take a moment." "No," Harren said, her voice sharp as glass. "Let him finish." It was a command, not a request. "Enzo," Jungkook spoke. "I didn't mean to say that here," he admitted, voice lower now, almost pleading. "I didn't mean to ruin this. Harren, you've given me nothing but love and loyalty, and I thought I could—" He broke off, exhaling through his nose like it would calm the hurricane in his chest. "But lying to you at the altar would be worse than walking away." There it was. The silence that followed was heavy, thicker than velvet, louder than thunder. In that space, history came crashing back. Flashbacks flickered like lightning in the back of Jungkook's mind. Minji's laughter echoing in his old apartment, their final argument on the bridge that overlooked Han River, the letter she had written but never sent. He had read it 2 years too late. And Harren, who had pieced him back together after Minji left, who had never asked too many questions, who had smiled even when she saw him staring at old photos, thinking she didn't notice. But she had noticed. She always had. "I should have told you I wasn't over her," Jungkook confessed. "But I thought I could love you enough to forget her." His voice cracked. "I was wrong." Minji finally stood. Not hurriedly, not dramatically. Just a slow, graceful rise, like someone who had nothing left to run from. That's when chaos truly erupted. Guests stood up, talking over one another, unsure whether to leave or stay. Harren's mother fainted. The wedding coordinator dropped her headset and sprinted to the back. Someone knocked over the cake. And through it all, Jungkook stood frozen, heart pounding, breath caught between guilt and relief. He looked at Minji. He looked at Harren. 2 women. One past. One future. And a truth that had waited far too long to be spoken. There would be no vows today. No. I do. Only the raw, unfiltered aftermath of a man who tried to bury love and found that it could not die quietly. "You selfish bastard." Minji's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. People stopped moving, stopped breathing. The murmurs died as quickly as they had risen. Her tone wasn't raised, but it carried something far more lethal than volume. Cold, precision, repressed fury. Jungkook turned to her slowly, his face pale, his lips parted in disbelief. This was the first time she had spoken to him in nearly 3 years. Minji took a step forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor, echoing like gunshots in the tense silence of the shattered wedding. Her eyes didn't blink. "You don't get to do this now," she said, her voice low but steady. "You don't get to speak my name like that in front of her, like I'm some unfinished sentence in your love story." Jungkook's mouth opened, but no words came. His thoughts were a whirlwind of regret and adrenaline. Harren stood in the background, unmoving, her veil still hanging like a ghost from her hair. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Her silence was louder than anything in that room. People kept watching her, waiting for her to break. But she didn't. "I'm not here for you," Minji continued, eyes never leaving Jungkook. "I came to wish you well. I came because your mother personally invited me, thinking I was over it. And you—" her voice cracked for the first time. "You couldn't let me walk out of your life quietly. You had to make me part of your circus." "That's not what this is," Jungkook finally said, stepping forward. "I didn't plan this. I didn't mean—" "You never mean anything," Minji snapped. "You didn't mean to fall in love with me. You didn't mean to leave. You didn't mean to ghost me for 6 months after promising to fix things. And now you didn't mean to ruin your own wedding?" She let out a hollow laugh, bitter and humorless. "You're a damn symphony of regret, Jungkook. But the world isn't your audience." From the side, Harin stepped forward. Her voice, when it came, was unnervingly calm. "Do you still love her?" Jungkook turned slowly, his face contorted in pain. "I don't know how to answer that. Yes or no. I don't want to hurt you." "You already did," she said simply. "So say it." He hesitated. Yes, there it was. The bomb. The wound torn open wide for everyone to see. Harin's hands, now bare without the bouquet, hung stiffly by her sides. "Then why did you propose to me?" she asked. "Why the hell did you let me wear this dress, walk down that aisle, and stand beside you in front of hundreds of people knowing your heart was somewhere else?" "Because I wanted it to be you," he whispered. "I wanted it so badly I lied to myself." "Then live with it," Harin said. Her voice cracked on the last word. "Live with the fact that you chose comfort over truth, and you destroyed both." She turned and walked away. But the drama didn't end there. From the back of the hall, a man stood up Minji's fiancé. No one had noticed him before, seated quietly, tucked into the crowd like an afterthought. Tall, severe, with eyes like polished obsidian. Seonwoo. He walked toward Minji with measured steps, but his expression was unreadable. The guests whispered, "Who was he? Why was he just standing there?" Seonwoo stopped a few feet from Minji. "You told me you were over him." "I thought I was," she replied, not denying it. "I didn't expect him to—" "But part of you wanted this, didn't you?" Her lips parted. Her throat moved, but no sound came out. Seonwoo looked at Jungkook. "You two deserve each other," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You both think the world revolves around your nostalgia." Then, he turned to Minji again. "We're done. No Seonwoo." He walked past her without looking back. Minji stood frozen, shaking now. The storm she had kept buried under skin and bone had cracked her open, and she was left exposed in front of strangers who looked at her not with pity but judgment. "Stop staring!" she suddenly screamed, turning on the crowd. "What the hell are you all looking at? Like you've never made a mistake? Like you've never loved the wrong person?" But no one moved. Suddenly, a wine glass shattered near the cake table. A little girl burst into tears. Jungkook's mother fainted. Harin's father ordered the photographers to stop filming. The priest quietly exited, white robes flapping behind him like surrender flags. Jungkook stood in the eye of the hurricane he had unleashed. His tuxedo suddenly felt like a prison uniform. He looked at Minji, broken, betrayed, burning. He looked toward the door where Harin had disappeared. He didn't follow either. Instead, he walked over to the altar and sat down right on the floor, next to the rings that now meant nothing. He buried his face in his hands, and for the first time that day, he wept. Not just for what he'd done, but for the realization that loving two people doesn't mean keeping either of them. Up above, the chandelier flickered, as if the universe itself was unsure how the story should go from here. And outside, unnoticed, a journalist lowered her camera, eyes gleaming. She had caught every second. And tomorrow, the world would know what happened behind those ivory doors. Jungkook Jeon's wedding was over, but the consequences were only just beginning. "You want a statement?" Jungkook asked, his voice hoarse as he stepped through the sea of journalists, tuxedos stained with wine and tears. "Here's your statement. I destroyed the one thing that loved me right, for the ghost of something that never did." The flashes were relentless. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Reporters screamed questions. Was the wedding canceled? Was he getting back with Minji? Was Harin all right? Did his agency know? Would BTS release an official statement? But Jungkook didn't flinch. He just stood there, jaw clenched, breath shallow, eyes swollen, somewhere between defiance and collapse. From inside the building, Heron's best friend, Yura, stormed out, pointing an accusatory finger at the reporters. "Back off, all of you. He might be an idiot, but he's still human," the crowd murmured. Some lowered their cameras, others didn't. "Where is Heron now?" someone shouted. "She doesn't owe you an answer," Yura snapped. Then another voice rose Minji's. "Let them film," she said as she walked out, shoulders squared, eyeliner smudged, but steps perfectly steady. "Let them show the world what heartbreak looks like. Maybe next time, it'll teach someone to keep their promises." Jungkook turned slowly. Their eyes met for the first time since the explosion inside. "You want to do this here?" he asked quietly. "I didn't ask for any of this," she replied. "But since we've already burned down the chapel, why not roast each other on the ashes?" The crowd drank it in like wine. "You never gave me closure," she said. "You never came back, you just disappeared." "You think I had it easy?" he barked. "You think walking away from you didn't tear me apart every damn day? Then why didn't you fight for me?" "Because I was drowning, Minji," he shouted. "Because every time I looked at you, I saw a future I didn't know how to reach, and I was too much of a coward to say I was scared." The silence after that was thick. It settled on their shoulders like guilt. Minji stepped forward, voice trembling now. "I waited for you." Jungkook closed his eyes. "I know. And when I finally stopped waiting, when I finally let someone else in, you show up again, like a curse that never learned to stay dead." "I didn't mean to ruin your life," he whispered. "You didn't ruin it," she said. "You just made me afraid to trust love again." A car screeched up to the curb. The door flew open, and Heron's mother stepped out, fury carved into every wrinkle of her face. "You disgusting little snake," she spat at Jungkook. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my daughter? I never wanted to hurt her." "But you did," she said coldly. "She can't even stand up right now. She's lying in my car, shaking like a girl left at the altar on national television." Jungkook looked down, the weight of it all finally sinking into his bones. The flowers, the vows, the father who flew in from Germany, the custom cake with their initials, the dreams Harin had whispered to him at midnight when she thought he was asleep. "Gone. Don't ever come near her again," Heron's mother hissed. "You don't deserve to say her name." The car peeled away, and then Seon-woo reappeared. Still in his sleek charcoal suit, tie loose, but eyes sharp. He walked straight past the crowd, past the whispers, past the flashing lights, until he stood between Jungkook and Minji. "You owe me an apology," he said calmly. Minji swallowed hard. "I know. You begged me to come here with you," Seon-woo continued. "Told me it was important to show that you'd moved on. Told me it was safe. I thought it was," she said. "I didn't know he'd say those things. You didn't stop him either. I couldn't. Would you have walked away with me if I asked you to before this mess started?" Minji looked down. That was all the answer he needed. "You never wanted me," he said. "You wanted the idea of someone who could protect you from him. But I'm not a rebound, Minji. I'm not your shield." And with that, Seon-woo turned and walked away for good. The journalists were eating every second of it. It would be the headline for weeks. Jungkook Jeon, the runaway groom. Minji Han, the woman he couldn't let go. Harin, the heart left at the altar. But Jungkook didn't care anymore. Let them write what they wanted. Let them twist it. None of it would hurt as much as the look on Harin's face when she had asked, "Do you still love her?" And he'd answered yes. The next day, every major network played the clip. Over and over. Edited, slow-motioned, analyzed. Public opinion was split. Some called him brave. Others called him cruel. Harin's fan base skyrocketed in sympathy. Minji received hate mail. Seon-woo declined all interviews. Jungkook? He vanished. He didn't return to the dorm. He didn't text his members. He didn't open his DMs. For 2 weeks, he stayed in a rented apartment overlooking the Han River, the same bridge where he and Minji had ended once before. Every night, he stood there at the railing, and every night, he wondered, had he saved himself or just destroyed everyone else to feel alive again? The rain had been falling for 3 hours. It wasn't gentle. It was loud, angry, like the sky itself was mourning something too heavy to name. The Han River churned beneath the bridge, swollen with storm water, just like Jungkook's mind. overflowing with everything he hadn't said, everything he had destroyed. He stood there again, same spot, the metal railing cold beneath his fingers, his hoodie soaked, his lip ring trembling against the chill. His reflection in the black water below looked like a stranger. Maybe he had become one. A voice broke through the rain. "You think if you keep standing here long enough, you'll find the version of yourself you lost?" He turned. Slowly. Minji. She stood 5 feet away. No umbrella. Hair plastered to her face. Mascara running. Eyes locked onto his. For a second, neither of them spoke. The storm spoke for them. It screamed. Jungkook took a slow breath. "I didn't ask you to come. You never ask," she said, walking closer, boots splashing through puddles. "You just hope the universe keeps giving you second chances." He swallowed hard. "You followed me?" "No," she said. "I knew you'd be here. I know you better than you think." Jungkook laughed bitterly. "Apparently not, or you wouldn't have looked so surprised when I said your name at the altar." "I wasn't surprised you remembered me," she said, voice sharp. "I was surprised you had the nerve." The words hit him like a slap. He deserved it. Minji's arms were folded, not for warmth, but for restraint. "I lost everything that day. My fiancé, my dignity, my peace. You dragged me through the mud just to say something you should have said 3 years ago. You don't understand," he muttered. "No, I understand perfectly," she shot back. "You couldn't stand watching me be happy with someone else. You had to ruin it. Because if you can't be happy, no one else should be." "That's not true, isn't it?" She stepped closer, eyes wild. "Do you even know what you want, Jungkook?" He opened his mouth, closed it. Rain slid down his face, and he couldn't tell anymore which droplets were tears and which weren't. "I wanted you," he said, voice breaking. "No," she snapped. "You wanted the idea of me, the version of me that never got tired, never cried, never made you question yourself. You wanted a fantasy, and the moment I became real, you ran." His fists clenched. "I was scared." "Then why did you chase me now?" she screamed. "Why ruin a wedding? Why destroy Heron?" "I didn't plan it," he said through gritted teeth. "I saw you sitting there, and everything I'd buried just cracked open. So it's my fault?" "No," he shouted. "I'm just saying, God, Minji, I never stopped loving you. And that truth sat in my throat for 3 years like poison. I tried to kill it. Heron tried to heal me. But the poison didn't die." She stood there, chest heaving, eyes wet. "Then why didn't you fight for me when it mattered?" He took a step toward her. "Because I thought I was the thing that broke you." "You were." Silence. It was the most violent thing they'd said all night. "I kept trying to fix what you did to me," she whispered. "Every man after you was a bandage I didn't believe in. Seonwoo deserved better. So did I." Jungkook's eyes were hollow. "So did Heron." "Then what do we do now?" she asked, voice shaking. "You broke us both. And now we're standing here like we're still something." He reached out, hesitated, dropped his hand. "I don't know." Minji looked at him for a long time, really looked, and something in her face shifted less anger, more devastation. "You think this is romantic," she said softly. "But it's not. It's tragic." The wind whipped through them. The river growled below. Jungkook's voice cracked. "Do you still love me?" Minji's mouth trembled. Her answer didn't come quickly. "Sometimes," she said finally, "when I forget what you did." "That's enough," he whispered. "No," she said. "It's not." A phone buzzed. Minji pulled it from her coat and glanced at the screen. Her face fell. "They leaked it," she said numbly. "A video from the chapel. Someone inside sold the footage to the press." Jungkook tensed. "What footage?" "Us. You saying my name. Me standing up. Seonwoo walking away. It's all over the internet. Trending in 3 countries. Shit. They're calling it the love collapse. Some tabloid even put us on a mock movie poster." His head dropped. "This is a nightmare." "You did this," she said. "You don't get to pretend you're the victim." "I'm not pretending anything," he said. "I lost everything too." Minji shook her head. "You didn't lose Haran. You threw her away. And you didn't lose me. You never had the courage to hold on." "Then why are you here?" he asked. She was quiet. "Why are you standing on this bridge in the rain if you're done with me?" Minji stared at him, then looked out at the water. Because part of me still wants to believe in us. His breath caught. But belief, she continued, isn't enough to rebuild something we never finished building in the first place. I want to try. It's too late. He took another step. What if it's not? The sound of her laugh was heartbroken. You think words fix things. They don't. And you don't get to choose when redemption begins. I'm not asking for redemption, he said. I'm asking for one last chance. She looked at him, truly looked, and then, with a final breath, she said, Then show me. Not here, not with speeches or tears, but in silence, in time, in truth. She turned and walked away, into the storm, leaving him alone with the weight of his choices. Jungkook stayed on that bridge until dawn, not because he was waiting for her to come back, but because, for once in his life, he knew he had to be still and let the storm pass without trying to control it. The world wouldn't stop watching. 2 weeks since the wedding disaster, and Jungkook's name still lit up every feed, every screen, every radio headline like a wildfire that refused to burn out. His agency remained silent. Haerin deleted all her social media. Minji turned off her phone, and Jungkook hid. But the world still found him. He couldn't walk into a convenience store without someone gasping behind their mask. Couldn't drink coffee without a camera aimed through the window. Couldn't breathe without being accused of faking redemption. But today, he wasn't running. Today, he'd agreed to meet Haerin. The room was small, cold, and clinical, rented by a third-party mediator for private conflict resolution. No cameras, no statements, no stylists. Just them. Him and her. 4 walls, 1 truth. He waited in silence, fingers tapping against the edge of the table, knee bouncing under it. The door opened quietly. Haerin walked in, dressed in all black. Her hair was up. No makeup, no smile. Just raw exhaustion. The kind of silence that doesn't scream but seethes. Jungkook stood, out of instinct. Don't, she said. Just sit. He did. She sat across from him. No words passed. Not at first. Then, she spoke. Is it all real? Jungkook blinked. What? The stories, the theories, that you and Minji were still meeting behind my back, that you proposed to me to erase her from your life. No, he said instantly. God, Haerin, no. I never cheated. I never touched her. I didn't even know she'd be at the wedding. But you knew you still loved her. He froze, then nodded, slowly. She let out a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. I begged you for honesty once. You said there was nothing to worry about, that your past was dead. I thought it was. Then it rose from its grave and dragged us both under. Jungkook looked down. You didn't deserve it. No, I didn't. Her voice cracked. I gave you everything. I waited for you when you were on tour, supported you through every meltdown, defended you when you didn't show up for my parents' anniversary dinner. Do you remember that? He nodded. I do. And the whole time, I was a placeholder. No, he said, louder now. Don't say that. You weren't. I loved you. Did you? Her eyes flared. Or did you just love the safety I gave you? The illusion of moving on? He didn't answer. Tell me this, she said, leaning forward, every syllable ice cold. If Minji had walked up to you at the altar and said she wanted you back, would you have left with her? His stomach twisted. His chest squeezed. She already knew the answer. I don't know, he said quietly. That was enough. She stood up. Then, this meeting is over. Haerin, wait. Don't. Her voice cracked like thunder. I didn't come here for closure. I came to make sure you heard what I've been trying not to scream every night since that day. She walked to the door, paused, and turned back one last time. You didn't just break my heart, Jungkook. You humiliated me. You turned me into a tragedy in front of the entire world. And now I have to rebuild myself without ever knowing if I was real to you or just a chapter you skimmed through on the way back to your ex. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. Jungkook sat there, hands trembling. There was no script for this kind of grief. No song that could capture the sound of a love officially pronounced dead. But the fallout wasn't over yet. That night, a private video leaked. It wasn't from the wedding. It was from 6 months before. Security footage, Minji and Jungkook in a cafe. She was crying. He was holding her hand. They looked close, too close. The internet went to war. Some said it proved he was emotionally cheating all along. Others said it was a goodbye meeting. A few said it was a PR stunt, nothing more. Jungkook stared at the video in silence. He remembered that day, the pain in Minji's eyes, the way she'd begged him to tell her if there was still a chance. He'd said no. He told her he was marrying someone else, and she had wept. He'd held her hand because it felt like the last time he'd ever be allowed to. Now the world thought it was a reunion. Minji called him that night. "Did you leak it?" she asked without greeting. "No, I would never." "Well, it's out there. And people are sending death threats to my parents. Again." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Stop saying that. Your apology doesn't rewind time." There was a long pause. Then she said something he didn't expect. "I'm leaving Seoul." His breath caught. "What?" "I'm done being the woman in your shadows. I'm done letting your fans destroy my life. I need air, Jungkook. Real air." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere they won't recognize me," she said. "Somewhere your name doesn't taste like blood." He didn't speak. "You don't get to follow me," she said, quieter now. "Don't chase me this time. Don't write a song. Don't post cryptic lyrics. Just let me go." "Minji," he whispered, voice trembling. "Please." But the line went dead. And for the first time since that day, Jungkook realized something that stripped him bare. He hadn't just lost 2 women. He'd lost every version of himself he could have been with them. And the only one left was the one who had to live with it all. "You need to fix this." That was the first thing his manager said when he burst through the door of Jungkook's apartment, hair disheveled, eyes burning with weeks of stress, phone vibrating endlessly in his pocket. The moment he saw Jungkook slouched on the couch, unshaven dark circles bruising the edges of his eyes, he cursed under his breath. "You don't look like an idol," he said. "You look like a ghost who forgot how to haunt." Jungkook didn't answer. He hadn't said much in days. Maybe it was grief, maybe shame. Maybe he'd simply run out of language for everything he'd lost. His manager threw a manila folder on the table. "Damage control. Legal. Branding. Possible redemption campaigns. You're trending in 8 countries, and none of it is good." Jungkook leaned forward slowly, picked up the folder with shaking fingers, and flipped through the pages. Public apology scripts. Talk show invitations. A charity concert proposal. A rehabilitation retreat. He set the folder down. Looked up. "I'm not doing any of that." The manager's nostrils flared. "Then what the hell are you doing?" "Letting it burn." "You don't get to let it burn," the man snapped. "You're not some indie artist playing in a basement. You're Jungkook of BTS. Every move you make shakes half the planet. You humiliated a woman at the altar and lit your ex's life on fire. And now, you're going to act like you're the victim?" Jungkook's jaw tightened. "I never said I was the victim. But you sure as hell keep playing the part." The words hit hard. Maybe because they were true. Maybe because they came from someone who'd seen him in his worst moments and was now watching him dig his own grave. His manager leaned in, voice lowering. "You think I don't know why you haven't spoken publicly? Why you haven't made a single move to fix any of this? You're hoping that if you stay quiet long enough, people will forget. That Minji will come back. That Haran will forgive you. That maybe, just maybe, someone will paint you as misunderstood instead of manipulative." "I never lied to them," Jungkook said, his voice low. "But you didn't tell the truth either. Not until it was too late." Silence stretched between them like wire pulled too tight. Finally, his manager exhaled. Sat back. "Minji left the country. I know. You know where?" "No. And I'm not going to find out." The older man studied him for a long time. "You love her?" Jungkook nodded once. "Then why didn't you follow her?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Because loving her doesn't mean I get to have her. Not anymore." Later that night, the building's rooftop was empty, the city glowing like a wound below. Jungkook stood near the edge, hoodie pulled over his head, cigarette trembling between his fingers, something he only touched when he couldn't cry. He didn't hear the footsteps until someone spoke. "I was wondering when you'd finally climb up here." He turned sharply. Taehyung. Leather jacket, messy curls, a half smile that held too much history. "I figured you'd be in Paris by now," Jungkook said. "I was. Then I saw your face on every street ad and thought, guess it's time to come home and slap some sense into him." Jungkook huffed. "You're too late." "No," Taehyung said, stepping closer. "I'm right on time. They stood in silence for a moment. The wind was cool, the stars indifferent. "You broke everything," Taehyung said. Not cruelly, but not softly either. "And the worst part? You knew you were going to." "I didn't know." "Yes, you did." Taehyung cut in. "You knew the moment you invited Haran into your life while still writing songs about Minji in your journal. You knew when you looked at Minji's Instagram every night but told Haran you were over it. You knew. You just didn't stop." Jungkook dropped the cigarette, crushed it with his boot. "I thought love could be rewired, that I could reroute it, that if I tried hard enough, the feeling would change." "It doesn't," Taehyung said. "Love doesn't vanish. It buries itself. And if you don't dig it up with honesty, it claws its way out through destruction." Jungkook laughed bitterly. "You sound like a damn poet. Pain makes philosophers out of all of us." There was silence again. Then Taehyung turned serious. "She's not coming back, Kook. Neither of them are. And if you want to survive what's coming next, you need to stop waiting for a reunion and start preparing for your reckoning." The next morning, Jungkook did something unexpected. He called Haran's mother. She didn't answer. But later, he received a text. "Don't ever call me again. But if you want to help, sign the NDA we're sending. Haran's moving on. Respect that." He agreed. No lawyers. No protest. Then, another call. His company. A press conference was scheduled. No teleprompter. No PR speak. Just him. Alone. A microphone. A nation waiting to rip him apart or forgive him. He said yes. That afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Jungkook walked into the press room wearing a simple black suit. No earrings, no makeup. Just him. The flashes were blinding. He stood behind the podium. He didn't clear his throat, didn't adjust the mic. He just began. "I'm not here to save face, or to explain away the pain I caused." The room went still. "I'm here because silence is a kind of cowardice, and I've been a coward for too long." He paused, looked straight into the sea of cameras. "I loved someone I let go. I loved someone I shouldn't have held on to. And in trying to choose, I broke both. That isn't romantic. That isn't tragic. That's just selfish." Some journalists blinked, surprised. Others leaned forward, pins ready. "To Haran, you were never a backup. You were light. And I dimmed you." His voice trembled, but he didn't stop. "To Minji, if you're watching this, know that I don't regret loving you, but I do regret not being brave enough to love you right." He took a breath. "I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not asking for redemption. I just want to stop pretending I didn't cause a storm." He stepped back. No one clapped. No one spoke. Just cameras, blinking like hungry eyes. And somewhere far from Seoul, Minji watched from a quiet cafe in Morocco, fingers tightening around a chipped porcelain cup. And for the first time since she left, she let herself cry. Not because she missed him, but because he finally said the words that should have come years ago. And sometimes the truth arrives too late to change the ending, but just in time to change the person. The internet was a battlefield. Jungkook's raw, unscripted confession had detonated across platforms like a silent bomb, no glitz, no filters, no edits. Just a man standing in front of the world, stripped of his idol armor, holding nothing but his guilt. Some praised him. Some cursed him. Some said it was the most honest thing a celebrity had ever done. Others said it was too late, too calculated, too little. The world had never felt so divided over a love story that didn't belong to them. But in a penthouse suite far from the noise, a call was ringing. Minji ignored it. She sat curled in a linen robe on a balcony in Marrakesh, watching the sunrise kiss the terracotta rooftops. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her laptop lay beside her, paused on the live stream of Jungkook's press conference. She hadn't expected him to say her name. She hadn't expected it to make her ache again. The phone kept buzzing. Finally, she answered. "You saw it?" said Yura's voice, tight with breath, like she'd been running through the whole city just to make this call. "I saw it. What do you think?" "I think," Minji said slowly, "he finally told the truth." "And?" Minji closed her eyes. "And it doesn't change anything." "Bullshit." Minji's voice sharpened. "I'm not going back, Yura. I left for a reason. I left because loving him was killing me. Because every time I tried to move forward, he'd show up again in a song, a video, a memory, and drag me right back. Yura was quiet for a moment. Then, "You still love him?" "I hate that I do." "Then what's stopping you?" Minnie's voice broke. "Trust." Later that day, Jungkook sat alone in his company's rehearsal room, watching a monitor loop footage of an old BTS concert. His younger self danced across the screen with the kind of fire he hadn't felt in years, pure, unstoppable, untouched by scandal. The door creaked open. Namjoon entered. For a moment, Jungkook didn't move. Then he turned slowly, surprised. "I thought you were in L.A." "I was. But this isn't something I wanted to hear about through headlines." Jungkook said nothing, just lowered his head. Namjoon sat beside him. There was no tension in the air, just weight, the heavy kind that only builds between people who've bled on the same stage. "She won't come back," Jungkook said finally. "I know. I ruined too much. I know that too." Jungkook looked over, surprised by the lack of sugarcoating. Namjoon leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You want to hear something ugly?" Jungkook nodded. "Sometimes love is real and still not enough. Sometimes you can love someone and still destroy them. And sometimes you have to live the rest of your life knowing the version of them you held will never exist again because you were the one who killed it." Jungkook swallowed. "I didn't want to break Heron, but you did. I didn't want to confuse Minji, but you did. I didn't want to lose them. You did." Silence fell between them again, but it wasn't cruel. It was clear. Namjoon continued. "You're going to carry this forever. That's the price, the punishment. But what matters now is what you build from it." "I don't know how." "You start by not trying to fix what's already broken. You don't chase the past. You don't rewrite the ending. You accept it, and you become better." Jungkook stared at the screen as a younger version of himself laughed during a fan interaction segment, beaming, carefree. "I miss him," he whispered. Namjoon nodded. "So do we." That night, a letter arrived at Jungkook's door. No name, no return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. He hesitated before opening it. Inside, one page. Folded twice. Smelled faintly of vanilla and sea salt. "Jungkook, I watched the press conference. I didn't think I would, but I did. You said everything I needed to hear, everything I waited years for. But the thing about truth is, it doesn't fix the past. It only changes how we carry it. I forgive you, but I don't want to rebuild what we had. I want to live a life where I'm not waiting for someone to choose me. I hope you find peace, real peace. And I hope you don't wait until the next heartbreak to become the man you promised me you could be. Minji." He read it twice, then a third time. And this time, he cried not from guilt, not from regret, but from something deeper, release. Somewhere in the same city, Heron stood backstage at a fashion show in Milan, watching herself trend again not as the woman left at the altar, but as the new face of Dior's winter campaign. She smiled at the mirror not because she was healed, but because she was surviving. A stage assistant called her name, and she walked forward not with vengeance, but with grace. Meanwhile, back in Seoul, Jungkook picked up a pen for the first time in weeks. No cameras, no deadlines, just a blank page. And maybe, finally, a beginning that wasn't born from someone else's ending. The studio smelled like old wood and dust, dimly lit, empty, except for a single microphone, a piano in the corner, and the sound of Jungkook's fingers tapping restlessly against the notebook on his lap. The ink had smudged in places. His words were raw, almost clumsy. For the first time in years, he wasn't writing for the charts, for the company, or even the fans. He was writing for the ghost that lived in the silence between his breaths. The letter from Minji sat on the desk beside him, still folded. He hadn't touched it since the third reading. He didn't need to. It was memorized now, branded onto the back of his eyes. "I forgive you, but I don't want to rebuild what we had." He stared at the mic, then back at the page. A door creaked open behind him. He didn't need to look. "Didn't expect to find you here," said Yoongi, leaning in the doorway, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Jungkook offered a weak smile. "Where else would I be?" Yoongi walked in, hands shoved into his hoodie pockets, eyes sweeping across the studio. He stopped near the piano, ran his fingers along the keys, without pressing them. I saw the press conference, he said. Everyone did. You think it helped? No? Yoongi tilted his head. Then why'd you do it? I didn't do it to fix anything, Jungkook replied. I did it so I could finally breathe, Yoongi nodded. That's something, I guess. There was a beat of silence, the comfortable kind that only exists between people who've known each other too long to need small talk. You writing again? Yoongi asked. Jungkook hesitated. Trying. Yoongi looked at the pages. Is it about her? It's always about her, Jungkook said. Even when I try to write about rain, it's her. Even when I write about forgiveness, it's Heron. When I write about ghosts, it's me. Yoongi finally sat down, sighed. I'm gonna say something you won't like. Go ahead. You're lucky they left. Jungkook stiffened. Not because they deserved the pain, Yoongi continued, but because you needed to be alone long enough to face yourself. And if either of them had stayed, you wouldn't have. You would have clung to the comfort like a lifeline. You would have kept pretending you were whole. Jungkook's voice was tight. I don't feel lucky. You're not supposed to, that's the point. The words landed like lead. Heavy. True. Jungkook looked down at the lyrics again. I'm scared the music's gone. Yoongi leaned forward. It's not gone. It's just honest now. Later that night, a live notification lit up phones across Asia. Jungkook had gone live on his personal account. No background music, no filters, no team. Just a single lamp, soft shadows on his face, and the piano behind him. He spoke slowly, carefully. I'm not here to apologize again, he said. I think I've said all the words that needed saying. Comments flooded in instantly. Heart emojis, broken heart emojis. The words we forgive you, and you ruined her flashing side by side. I'm here because I wrote something, and I want to share it. Not for validation, not for approval, just because I need to. He moved to the piano, took a breath, and played. The melody was soft, unpolished, aching. The lyrics weren't poetic. They were messy, but real. I built a house from half-spoken words, painted the walls with maybe and almost, but I never gave you all of me. Just enough to keep you waiting. And when you left, I blamed the wind, pretended the doors shut themselves. But I was the storm, and I never said I'm sorry loud enough. The chat froze. Even the trolls stopped. Jungkook played through the cracks in his voice, through the ache in his chest, through the weight of a name he no longer deserved to say aloud. When the final note faded, he looked into the camera. She's not coming back, he said. He didn't name her. He didn't need to. And I don't want her to. Not until I'm someone who deserves to be remembered without pain. He ended the live. At that same moment, Heron was sitting in a hotel room in Tokyo, curled up on the couch with a book she hadn't been able to focus on for days. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it at first, but the curiosity won. She opened the stream replay. She listened. Every word, every note. Her lips didn't tremble. Her eyes didn't well up. But when the final piano chord played, she whispered to the empty room, "You waited too long." And she turned off her phone. Elsewhere, Minji had just returned from the market, basket full of figs and mint leaves. She set it on the kitchen counter, poured a glass of wine, and opened her laptop. She didn't watch the stream, but the message was already waiting in her inbox. From an anonymous sender. No body text. No attachments. Just a subject line. I finally stopped running. She stared at it for a long time, closed the laptop, sipped her wine, and finally smiled, not because she wanted him back, but because she had finally stopped running too. From herself, from the pain, from the possibility that maybe love doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes it means learning how to let go with grace and letting someone become a memory that no longer hurts. In Seoul, as the rain began to fall again, Jungkook sat alone in the studio, fingers poised over the piano. And for the first time since the wedding, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. You do realize you're the most hated man in South Korea right now, right? The words came from the most unexpected place. Jeon, BTS's longtime manager. He rarely spoke with anger. But tonight, his voice echoed off the walls of the conference room like a slap. Jungkook didn't respond immediately. He was sitting at the far end of the table, arms folded across his chest, hair still damp from the rain outside. The sleeves of his hoodie were rolled up, revealing the ink on his forearm still fresh. Still healing. "I know," Jungkook said quietly. Sejin stepped forward, slamming a thick folder on the table between them. It burst open with printouts, headlines, screenshots, media transcripts. "You think going live and crying into a piano makes it better? This isn't just about your personal mess anymore. The brand's bleeding. Your face is on international news again. Dior's considering pulling your contract. Streaming numbers are down for the group. And Haron just filed a formal request to have her name removed from any promotional archive connected to you." "I didn't ask for any of that," Jungkook said. "You didn't have to. You started the fire and walked through it like it wouldn't touch anyone else. And now," Sejin leaned in, lowering his voice, "now we're all choking on your smoke." Jungkook looked up, slowly. "I never asked anyone to save me." "You didn't have to ask," Sejin snapped. "We were always going to. That's what family does. But you have to give us something to work with, because right now you're not just self-destructing, you're taking everyone with you." There was silence again. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Jungkook finally spoke. "I want to make a documentary." Sejin blinked. "What?" "I want to tell everything. From the beginning. No edits, no filters, just the truth. All of it." Sejin's face was unreadable. "You're insane." "Maybe," Jungkook said. "But I'm tired of people deciding the narrative for me. I'm tired of being everyone's tragedy or villain. I want to take the camera back." "You realize what that'll do? The backlash? You think people are cruel now. Wait until you actually give them something to dissect." Jungkook stood. "Let them." The next week, production began in secret. No lighting crew, no script, no PR handlers. Just a small team of documentarians. Jungkook handpicked himself outsiders, artists, not affiliated with the company, people who didn't owe him anything, people who could see him clearly. He gave them everything. Footage from the wedding rehearsal where Harin had asked if he was sure. Messages with Minji from months before the disaster, full of silence, confusion, broken patterns. Audio diaries recorded late at night, unraveling slowly, painfully, until all that was left was the sound of a man admitting that he had no idea who he was anymore. He spoke openly about the guilt, the shame, the nights he screamed into pillows because he missed someone he'd hurt too badly to ever call again. He didn't ask to be defended. He just told the truth. And when the trailer dropped 2 weeks later, it exploded. Jungkook. The Unfiltered Truth. A six-part documentary. Episode 1 title. She Should Have Left Sooner. The internet lost its mind. Within minutes, hashtags trended worldwide. Some people accused him of manipulating public sympathy. Others were stunned by the rawness of the first preview, which showed a tearful Haron asking the camera, "Do you know what it feels like to compete with a memory?" But it wasn't until the final moments of the trailer that jaws truly dropped. A short, unedited clip. Minji, standing alone, arms crossed, lips pressed in a tight line, voice calm, eyes dead. "I didn't want to be part of this, but if he's finally telling the story, then I'll tell mine." Jungkook hadn't known they'd filmed her. The team had reached out behind his back. She had agreed, on her terms. No questions submitted in advance. No retakes. One take, one sitting. He watched her segment in silence. "You want to know what it was like to be loved by him?" she said to the camera. "It felt like flying. Until it didn't. Until I was falling and he was watching, wondering why I couldn't save myself." She laughed bitterly. "He told me once that I made him feel alive. But I think he just liked the way I made him feel less empty. I wasn't love. I was a distraction." Jungkook felt the punch in his chest like a fist. She wasn't done. "And maybe I used him too. Maybe I liked being needed. Maybe I liked being the chaos. Because when he looked at me, it was like I was the only thing that could keep his world from collapsing. And for a while, I believed that lie too." The screen cut to black. Episode 1 was set to release in 5 days. The hate mail multiplied. So did the support. Haron's legal team issued a statement. She will not participate in the documentary, but wishes healing for all parties involved. Minji posted a single sentence on her story. "Truth is just the side of the story we've convinced ourselves is justice." At midnight, Jungkook received a message. "Unknown number. You're braver than I expected. But don't confuse honesty with redemption. They're not the same." He didn't need to guess who sent it. And he didn't reply. Instead, he walked into the editing room, took a seat beside the director, and asked quietly, "Is it too late to add one more clip?" The director looked up. "What is it?" Jungkook handed over his phone. A voice memo. His voice, whispering into the dark. "If you ever see this, Minji, know that I never told the world to love you. They just did. Because you were impossible not to. Even when you broke, even when I broke you, you were the most honest thing in my life. And I'll spend the rest of mine trying to deserve the memory of you." The director listened, silent, and then nodded. "Episode 2, he said. "We'll open with that." Outside, the city never slept. But tonight, for the first time in months, Jungkook would. Not because the world was ready to forgive him, but because he was finally ready to face it, whether it did or not. The world did not soften. When episode 1 aired, it did more than trend, it ruptured. Jungkook's voice narrating over childhood footage, the shaky rehearsal clips, Haren's voice trembling as she whispered. He was gentle, until he wasn't. And Minji's final monologue raw, venomous, heartbreakingly composed, became the centerpiece of a global conversation that no one could escape. Across the globe, reaction videos exploded. Debates lit up on talk shows. Radio hosts who once idolized Jungkook now dissected his every pause, his every facial twitch. One anchor boldly declared, "This is not just a scandal. It's a reckoning of power, parasocial romance, and the poison of idealized love." And deep within it all, Jungkook remained silent. Until episode 2. The second episode opened with the voice memo. "If you ever see this, Minji, know that I never told the world to love you. They just did. Because you were impossible not to. Even when you broke. Even when I broke you. You were the most honest thing in my life. And I'll spend the rest of mine trying to deserve the memory of you." There was a beat of silence after the recording ended. Then the camera faded into a long, uncut interview. Jungkook alone, in a white hoodie, eyes dark, lips slightly chapped, a glass of untouched water beside him. "Do you think you were ever capable of monogamy?" the interviewer asked off camera. Jungkook looked at the ground for a moment. "I think I was capable of trying," he answered. "But I think I was too addicted to being seen to know how to love." "Explain that." He inhaled deeply. "Minji loved me when no one else was looking. That kind of love, it's quiet. It doesn't clap for you. It doesn't care about your stats or your face on a billboard. It just sits beside you when you're ugly." Haren, she loved the version of me that was ready. The version that knew better. And I wanted to be that version so badly. I wore it like a suit of armor, but it cracked every time I saw Minji's name. The interviewer was quiet. "Did you ever tell Haren the truth while you were with her?" Jungkook's eyes dropped. "No," he said. "And I hate myself for that." The documentary cut to a moment most fans never expected to see. Haren's voice, recorded in a private interview, off camera. "He told me he loved me, every day, and I think a part of him meant it, but his eyes, they always looked tired when he said it, like he was begging himself to mean it more than he did." Then, the twist. A secret audio recording, taken from a dinner a month before the wedding. Haren and Jungkook. "You haven't said Minji's name in 3 weeks, Haren said. "Because I'm trying not to think about her. That's not the same as moving on. I am moving on. With you." "No, Jungkook," she whispered. "You're hiding with me." The episode shattered public opinion all over again. Some viewers began turning, not because they forgave him, but because the pain was starting to feel too real to demonize. Others doubled down. He manipulated 2 women. He's a textbook narcissist. This is just a PR rebrand in slow motion. But one clip no one could deny shook everything. In the final 15 minutes of the episode, Minji returned to the screen. She was no longer composed, no longer trying to speak with dignity. She was sitting cross-legged in the interview chair, her hands clenched into fists, her eyes wild. "He called me the night before the wedding," she said. The director asked gently, "Are you ready to share this part?" Minji didn't blink. "I wasn't going to. But after seeing the comments, after watching people turn me into the villain, I want the record straight." She took a deep breath. "He called me at 2:12 a.m. I was in bed. I thought he was drunk. He said, 'I can't do it. Not without knowing if you're still mine.' I told him, 'I'm not yours, Jungkook. I haven't been for years.'" "And you know what he said?" She looked directly into the lens. He said, "Then why do you still sound like my home?" There was silence in the room. And then Minji laughed, but it wasn't joy. It was grief. I hung up. And I cried until morning. And then I showed up at that wedding. Because some sick part of me wanted to see him break. Just to prove I still mattered. The screen cut to black. Viewers screamed. Online threads turned violent. TikTok spliced her words into poems. News anchors asked legal experts if calling your ex the night before your wedding could count as emotional infidelity. Think pieces poured in. The fandom fractured like glass under pressure. Jungkook's team scrambled, but he refused to speak further. Until the third leak. A tabloid released alleged screenshots of Minji and Jungkook in Paris, 1 year prior to the wedding, hugging on a street corner. A timestamp proved he had visited the same week Haran had been in Japan for a photo shoot. Social media went nuclear. Minji received death threats. Haran trended again, this time with headlines demanding justice. Jungkook's face was on international magazines with the headline, "Idol, Liar, Lover." And then Haran broke her silence. A handwritten letter, posted on her private Instagram, visible only to close friends. But someone leaked it. I never asked to be loved halfway. I never begged to be chosen. I just wanted someone to tell me the truth before I gave them all of mine. I don't hate you, Jungkook, but I hope you remember what my love looked like before you threw it away. The documentary was suddenly more than art. It was evidence. It was war. And yet, even amidst the fire, Jungkook stayed quiet. Until one night, he walked into the same hotel bar where he first saw Haran 2 years ago before anything had begun. The bartender recognized him immediately. "Usual?" the man asked. Jungkook nodded. He sat in silence until a soft voice spoke beside him. "You don't look like someone who regrets anything." He turned. Haran, standing beside him, not angry, not sad, just still. He stared, mouth open, breath caught. I didn't know. I'm not here for you," she interrupted. "I'm here for closure." He stood slowly. "You didn't respond to the letter. I read it. I burned it." Jungkook swallowed hard. "Do you hate me?" She tilted her head. "No. I just hope you never love anyone the way you loved me." He looked down. "I didn't know how to love you properly. And I didn't know how to walk away," she said. There was a beat. Then, Haran reached into her coat, handed him a single photo. It was from the wedding rehearsal. Haran, in white. Jungkook, smiling. Minji blurred in the background, standing alone. "This is the last time I remember being happy," Haran said. He looked at the photo, his hands trembling. "I hope," she whispered, "you find a new memory to replace it." And then she was gone. Jungkook sat at the bar, clutching the photo. And for the first time, he didn't cry, because grief had finally stopped being a storm. It had become a mirror. The night air in Seoul was thick, humid, restless, like the entire city was holding its breath. Jungkook stood on the rooftop of Hybe's private recording complex. Hood pulled over his head, cigarette dangling loosely from his fingers. He hadn't smoked in years. But now he welcomed the bitterness. It didn't judge him. It didn't demand an apology. It just burned. Inside, chaos simmered. Episode 3 of the documentary had just gone live, and it had done something none of them had expected. It turned the audience, not toward sympathy, toward rage. Not just at Jungkook anymore, but at Minji. The episode opened with archival footage, private videos from their first year dating. Laughter in bed, cooking together, her stealing his hoodie, him stealing her fries. Moments that felt too intimate to be shared with the world. And yet, Jungkook had handed them over. Then came the curveball, a recorded conversation between Jungkook and Minji just a few months before he proposed to Haran. She was on speaker. He was alone in the studio. "You said you were done," he told her. "I thought I was. But I keep hearing your voice in songs that haven't been written yet," she replied. "Then don't listen," he snapped. "Don't write about me," she whispered. "I can't stop." That single clip changed everything. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't so simple. It wasn't Jungkook cheated on Haran or Minji was the victim all along. It was messier, darker. It was mutual destruction. The footage painted them as two addicts hooked on each other's pain. She knew she was wrecking his relationship, He knew he was dragging her back in, but neither let go. Minji's fan accounts were swarmed. Petitions began. Companies she had partnered with issued review statements. Some demanded she be removed from the documentary completely. And Minji? She went silent. No statements, no posts. Until that night, Jungkook's phone buzzed. It looked down. It was her. One word. Rooftop. When he turned, she was already there. She stood near the railing, hands in her coat pockets, hair tied back, lips pale, eyes unreadable. "You leaked that call," she said. "No," he replied. "The team asked for every file. I gave them everything. I didn't know they'd use that." She didn't believe him. He could tell. Minji's voice dropped. "Do you know what it's like to have the world rewrite your love story into a villain arc?" Jungkook stepped forward. "Do you think that didn't happen to me too? You're still adored," she hissed. "You're still protected. You cry into a camera, and the world bends. I tell the truth, and I get branded." "We told the truth," he snapped. "You said you wanted to be heard. You sat in front of that camera. You agreed. I didn't agree to be blamed." "No one's blaming you," he said, voice rising. "They are," she yelled. "They're sending messages to my mother. They're calling me a seductress, a manipulator, a fame whore." "And what do you want me to do, Minji?" he interrupted. "Take it all back? Undo it? Say it was all my fault again? Fine. I will. I'll say whatever you want. But it won't change the truth. We destroyed each other, and I'm done pretending one of us came out clean." She didn't reply. The wind howled between them. Then, softly, too softly, Minji said, "I'm losing everything. Because I couldn't stop loving you." Jungkook's chest tightened. "You said in the voice memo that you'd spend the rest of your life trying to deserve my memory," she continued. "But I don't want to be remembered. I want to be free." Her voice broke on the last word. "I thought this documentary would free me," she whispered. "Instead, it chained me all over again." "I'm sorry," Jungkook said. "I thought it would set us free." "There is no us," she said. The silence after that hurt more than any scream. She turned to go, but then stopped. And for the first time since the wedding, she looked at him not like a lover, not like an enemy, but like someone mourning a version of him that never really existed. "Do you remember the night we watched the fireworks from your rooftop?" she asked. His eyes softened. "Yeah, you said you'd never hurt me, that if you ever did, you'd disappear before I had to watch." He nodded slowly. "You broke that promise," she said. And then she walked away. Jungkook stood in the dark, hands still wrapped around the photo Haran had given him, the ashes of their promises now blowing in every direction. The next morning, Hybe called an emergency meeting. The CEO's voice was cold, measured, brutal. "Do you want out?" Jungkook blinked. "Out of what?" "The contract, the group, the career, all of it. Do you want out?" "No," he said instantly. "Then fix this. Because if episode 4 drops with another scandal, you're done." The room emptied, leaving Jungkook alone with Namjoon. "You really thought you could film your own disaster and walk out untouched?" the leader asked. "I didn't think," Jungkook muttered. "I just needed to feel honest." Namjoon leaned back. "You know what's worse than being a liar?" "What?" "Being the truth that no one wants to hear." Later that night, a private DM slid into Jungkook's inbox. From Haran, "Do not speak my name in the next episode. If you do, I'll sue. You already turned my love into content. Don't turn my silence into profit." He stared at the message for a long time, then replied, "Understood. I'm sorry, truly." And for once, he meant it. That same night, Minji posted a single, shocking update. A video, unfiltered, dark, her eyes swollen, her voice steady. No more edits, no more documentaries, no more narratives. She inhaled. "I loved a man who loved the idea of me, and I was addicted to the attention he gave me when no one else was watching. A pause. We were never soulmates. We were mirrors. And eventually, we shattered." The video ended. There were no hashtags, no sponsors, just silence. And yet, it went viral. When episode 4 aired, the world was different. The documentary wasn't a love story anymore. It was a warning, a requiem. And Jungkook? He watched it alone, in a dark room, surrounded by trophies, surrounded by echoes, and finally understood. Sometimes the most painful punishment is being remembered exactly the way you were. It was supposed to be a routine rehearsal. Jungkook had requested the older, smaller dance studio, the one without mirrors on every wall, the one with the creaky wooden floors and that one flickering fluorescent light in the corner. He wanted the nostalgia, the solitude. He hadn't danced properly in months, and tonight he wasn't doing it for content or choreography or healing. He was doing it because it hurt too much to sit still. The track played on loop, one of his unreleased demos, still unfinished. A haunting, slow burn of synth and piano, with no vocals yet, just breath and silence, and space between the notes. He moved with it, limbs sharp, chest trembling, his footwork clumsy but desperate. Sweat poured down his back. His hoodie clung to him like guilt, until the door creaked. He didn't stop dancing, until a voice said, "You're still trying to outrun the beat." He froze, turned slowly, and there she was, Minji, again. But this time, she wasn't there for him. She wasn't wearing black. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even guarded. She was holding a manila folder and wearing a white shirt that looked like it belonged to someone else. Her expression was unreadable. "I told the production team to pull my scenes from the final 2 episodes," she said. "They refused." Jungkook wiped the sweat from his brow. "I didn't know." "You never do," she said, walking toward him, heels echoing in the studio like accusations. "They said I signed a release, that I legally gave up control. But you and I both know this stopped being about legality a long time ago." He said nothing. She opened the folder, pulled out a printed transcript. Episode 4's narration. "She was fire, but I kept trying to drown her in promises I never intended to keep." "I didn't write that," he said. "But you let it air," she snapped. "You approved it. I wasn't in the room when they cut it." "No," she said. "You were too busy being the tragic lead of your own slow-motion collapse." He stepped forward. "Why are you really here?" She looked at him. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't look like she wanted to destroy him. She looked like she wanted to understand. "I watched it all," she said softly. "Every episode, every frame, every confession. I watched you become something I don't recognize anymore." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Maybe I never was what you thought I was." She shook her head. "No, you were kind. You were soft. You used to laugh with your whole body. Now, you only smile when you're apologizing. You think I'm faking my pain? I think you're addicted to it," she said. "I think you'd rather be hated than forgotten." He staggered back like she'd hit him. "You came all this way to tell me that?" "I came to tell you that you don't need to bleed for them anymore. The cameras, the fans, the world. You can stop performing your regret like it's a song." He stared at her, and then quietly said, "Do you regret us?" Her face didn't change, but her throat tightened. "Yes," she said. "But not the way you think. I don't regret loving you. I regret believing that love could fix what trauma made of us." The silence after that was unbearable, but she wasn't done. "I'm moving to New York," she said. "I've been offered a teaching residency at Tisch. 6 months. Maybe longer." Jungkook blinked. His voice was small. "Why are you telling me?" "Because I don't want you to find out through some headline," she said. "Because for everything we weren't, we still deserve honesty." He nodded slowly, and then he whispered, "Do you ever think about what it would have looked like if we had met now? Not back then, not when we were messy and raw, but now, older, smarter." She smiled, heartbreakingly sad. "No, because if we'd met now, I wouldn't have fallen for you. I'd have seen the red flags." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's fair." She stepped closer, held his gaze. "But if we'd met later, maybe you wouldn't have needed saving, and I wouldn't have tried." Then she leaned in, pressed a kiss to his cheek. Not longing, not romantic, a farewell. She turned, and just before she reached the door, she said, "Write something for yourself next time. Not for me, not for her, not for them, just for you." Then she was gone. Jungkook stood in the center of the studio. The music still played, looping quietly in the background. He didn't move, didn't speak, and then without warning, he broke. He fell to his knees, screamed into his hands. Not because she left, but because for the first time since it all began, she didn't look back. The next day, Episode 4's ratings doubled, but Jungkook didn't watch it. He was in the studio, alone, writing for no one. The rain came hard that night, thick sheets pounding Seoul's glass skyline like a warning from the sky itself. Every street glistened like spilled ink. The city, ever unbothered, carried on beneath its umbrellas and neon signs. But inside a small, soundproofed room buried 3 floors beneath Hybe's headquarters, Jungkook wasn't paying attention to the storm. He was inside a booth, headphones on, track loaded, mic live, and the record button glowing red. He wasn't recording a song, not tonight. This time, it was a message, a personal one, not scripted, not rehearsed. Just him and a mic and whatever truth still lived in his lungs. "I don't know if you'll hear this," he began, voice low, fragile. "Or if you'd even want to, but I need to say it anyway. Just once. Just somewhere." He paused, swallowed. "There was a night, right before the wedding. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the hallway outside Heron's room. She was laughing with her sister, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. And I remember thinking, this is what peace looks like. And I hated myself, because all I could think about was how I'd already ruined it." The static in the room hummed gently. "I don't think I ever loved Heron the way she needed me to. Not because she wasn't enough, but because I wasn't. She gave me calm, and I kept chasing storms." Another pause. "I was the storm." Outside the booth, someone watched through the glass. Namjoon. He didn't speak, just stood with arms folded listening, not judging. Inside, Jungkook continued. "And Minji, if you're hearing this, you were never a mistake. You were never a phase. You weren't an addiction, or a mirror, or a lesson. You were a person, and I'm sorry for reducing you to anything less." He hesitated again, looked down. "I used to think vulnerability meant begging for forgiveness, but I don't want forgiveness anymore. I want understanding. I want the people I broke to know that I know I broke them, and that I don't expect them to come back just because I finally figured it out too late." He exhaled. "I'm not a victim. I'm not a villain. I'm just someone who forgot that love isn't currency. It's not performance. It's not entitlement. And when I finally remembered, everyone had already walked away." He ended the recording. Didn't listen back. Didn't save it under a label or date. Just hit export, titled the file unsent. Namjoon followed him out as he left the booth. "You gonna release it?" he asked. "No," Jungkook said. "You sure?" "I just needed to say it." They walked in silence down the long corridor, past the glass walls that used to feel like windows of triumph. Now they just reflected a version of himself he no longer recognized. Until Namjoon finally said, "Episode 5 drops in 2 days. You ready?" Jungkook shook his head. "No, but I'll still be here." 2 days later, Episode 5 aired. It opened with Heron, a voice note she had sent to the producers after seeing the backlash from the previous episodes. "I don't want to be remembered as the girl in the white dress who got humiliated," she said. "I want to be remembered as the woman who walked away before she became unrecognizable to herself." Then came the bombshell, a confession from Minji raw footage they had saved until now. "I lied," she said, voice shaking. "Not about loving him, not about the pain, but about something else. There was a night, 1 week before the wedding, we kissed." The screen cut to black, and the world exploded. The narrative shattered all over again. It wasn't just emotional infidelity now. It was physical, tangible, betrayal with teeth. Hashtags trended globally. Minji Kissgate. Harin deserved better. Cancel Jungkook now. Brands pulled ads. The documentary's producer issued a frantic statement, distancing themselves from select editorial decisions. Hybe went silent. And Jungkook? He didn't post, didn't comment. He just showed up to a fan meeting, unannounced. No press, no handlers. Just him, sitting on the edge of the stage at a small, private event meant for 50 lucky fans from a sweepstakes planned months ago before everything burned. They gasped when he entered. No one knew if they were supposed to clap. He smiled, tired, broken, sincere. "I wasn't supposed to come tonight," he said into the mic, "but I didn't want to hide anymore." A girl from the front row raised her hand. She was trembling. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "To Heron? To Minji? To us?" Jungkook stared at her and didn't flinch. Because I didn't love myself enough to know how to love anyone else. Silence. Then another voice. Would you take it back if you could? He thought about that, then said, no, because I'd still be the person capable of doing it. He scanned the crowd, eyes full of hurt. Yes, but not hatred. Some still loved him. Some were done. Some didn't know how to feel. And that was fair. Later that night, in a quiet corner of the studio, he played the recording titled Unsent. Alone. He didn't cry, didn't smile, just listened. And for once, didn't wish to change the past. Only hoped the future wouldn't look so much like it. And outside, somewhere far from Seoul, Minji watched the live footage of the fan meeting from a pirated stream. She didn't comment. She didn't repost. She just whispered to no one, that version of you, I could have loved. But she closed the window anyway, because knowing you could have loved someone doesn't mean you should try again. And maybe that was the final lesson. Some stories aren't meant to be rewritten, only remembered. The headlines refused to sleep. Kissgate, exclusive footage confirmed. Haran breaks her silence again. Minji deactivates all social media accounts. Jungkook's empire crumbling. Episode 6 might be cancelled. But none of it mattered to Jungkook anymore. The noise had numbed him. The scandals had outgrown him. He was no longer the story. He was the cautionary tale people dissected at dinner, judged in comment sections, and memed into something unrecognizable. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 days. Not his members. Not his manager. Not the production crew. Not even himself. Until a knock came at his door. Sharp, fast, unrelenting. He ignored it. But it didn't stop. Finally, he dragged himself up and opened it, and Haran was standing there, soaked from the rain. Her eyes were sharp, her arms crossed, her jaw locked, like she was holding back years of rage. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked in like the apartment still remembered her shape. Jungkook followed, stunned, silent. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. She paced once, twice, then turned. You kissed her. He closed his eyes. I did. 1 week before the wedding, she said. I know. Her voice cracked. I asked you. I looked you in the eye and asked you if there was anything I needed to know. And you said no. I lied, he whispered. Don't whisper, she snapped. Say it like a man. I lied, he said louder. Because I was a coward, she took a breath. Did you sleep with her? No. Did you want to? He looked at her and said nothing. That was the answer. Haran laughed, a sound so hollow it could have shattered mirrors. You know what hurts the most, she said. It's not the betrayal, not even the humiliation. It's the fact that I would have still married you. His mouth parted. Haran. No, she cut in. I would have walked down that aisle. Said I do. Worn your ring. Because I wanted to believe you could become the man I imagined. She shook her head, tears building. But you weren't changing. You were just rehearsing. Jungkook stepped closer. I never meant to. Don't say that, she said, her voice rising. You always say you never meant anything, but meaning nothing doesn't absolve you from the damage. You didn't mean to ruin me, you didn't mean to break Minji, you didn't mean to lie. So, what did you mean to do, Jungkook? He didn't have an answer. She stepped forward, close enough that he could see the mascara smudged beneath her eyes, the rage trembling in her shoulders. I was your lifeline, she said. You pulled me in when you were drowning and held me there until I couldn't breathe either. And now? Now you want to cry about the wreckage? The guilt? I'm sorry, he said, voice cracking. You're sorry because you got caught. No, he said louder. I'm sorry because I remember how you looked at me, like I was worth something, like I was enough, and I took that and stomped on it because I didn't know how to accept love that wasn't earned through chaos. She stared at him, and in that moment, something shifted in her expression. Not forgiveness, not pity, just clarity. You'll never be happy until you learn to love without performing it, she said. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope. What's this? He asked. The rest of your letters. He took it with shaking hands. She moved to the door, opened it, and paused. I'll never hate you, she said, but I'll never miss you either. Then she left, and Jungkook stood in the middle of the apartment, holding every word he'd ever written to her in one trembling hand. He opened the envelope, hundreds of pages, most never delivered. Some stained with tears, others with coffee. A few ripped, rewritten, abandoned, all of them hollow now. He sank to the floor and cried, not for Heron, not even for Minji, but for the version of himself he could never seem to outgrow. The next day, a surprise announcement exploded across the media. Minji to give an exclusive interview live, uncut, one night only. The teaser was only 5 seconds long. Her face in shadow, her voice calm. I stayed silent so he could have the stage. Now I'm taking it back. The nation braced for blood. And Jungkook? He bought a plane ticket. He didn't call ahead. Didn't warn anyone. Didn't tell his team. He just packed a single bag and disappeared from Seoul. Not to escape, but to arrive. Where? Even he didn't know yet. But he knew this. If there was one more apology to give, it would not be for the cameras. The city of Amsterdam was quiet in the early morning. The canals barely stirred. The sky was pale with sleep. Trams rattled down empty streets. It was a city that had learned how to carry stories in silence. Maybe that's why Jungkook chose it. He stepped off the train alone. A black hoodie, a worn-out backpack, no security, no stylists, just him. No one recognized him. That was the gift Europe gave him now, anonymity as a second chance. In his hand was a screenshot, a street address, a still from Minji's upcoming live interview announcement, which eagle-eyed fans had geotagged to a modest film studio on the Jordan side. The building behind her in the teaser, the cracked red bricks, the yellow shutter, the cafe sign reflected faintly in the window. He'd found it all. She was here, somewhere, and he didn't know what he would say if he saw her. He didn't come to win her back. He didn't come to ask for more time. He came because every apology he had given until now had been laced with performance, with a backdrop, with an audience. But this one was just for her. He walked the streets until his feet throbbed, until the building appeared in front of him. A modest 3-story brick space with a metal door and no plaque. The windows were tall, partially covered in fogged film. The crew inside was already setting up. He could hear the shifting of lights, the scraping of tripods. There was no security, no line of fans. This was not an event. It was war disguised as conversation. And she was already there. He didn't knock. He waited outside, across the street, behind the shadow of an old bicycle rack. A trembling coward, a man who had broken everything and still wasn't sure how to fix even one piece. And then, the door opened, and Minji stepped out. She wasn't dressed like the Minji the world knew. Not like the Minji who had been twisted into a symbol, an ex-girlfriend, a beautiful casualty. She wore a green coat that went to her knees, no makeup, her hair in a low bun. She looked ordinary, exhausted, real. She saw him immediately, and for a moment, her expression didn't change. Then, she sighed. "You followed me again," she said. "I didn't know what else to do," he said, stepping forward. She didn't smile. She didn't run. She didn't retreat. "I have an interview in 20 minutes, she said. "Whatever this is, say it. Say it once." He nodded. "I'm not here to ask anything of you. Not forgiveness, not closure, not a conversation we've already had 20 times. I'm here because I finally understood something." She raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "That I ruined more than just our relationship," he said. "I ruined your name, your peace. I made you collateral in my war with myself. I didn't just break you in private, I handed your pain to the public like it belonged to them." She said nothing. "I let the cameras tell our story, and I gave them the ugliest parts of you and called it honesty. I thought that was brave, but it was just cruel." Minji stared at him, then walked closer. "You think I didn't want to call you?" she said, voice trembling. "You think I didn't rehearse every word of an apology I thought you owed me? I was angry. For so long, I was angry because you let me be the villain in your narrative when you knew I was just the person who loved you the longest." He flinched. She stepped closer. "Jungkook, I wasn't perfect. God knows I was a mess. I manipulated too. I clung too tight. I played games when I should have spoken plainly. But I never made you a character in my trauma. I never filmed your pain and called it redemption." His voice was almost a whisper. "I know. I let you haunt me for years," she said. "I made excuses for you to every person who told me to run. And then I watched you stand at an altar, look me in the eyes, and light a match you didn't even try to blow out. I should have never invited you, he said. You should have never hidden me, she corrected. The silence between them stretched. Cold wind blew across the canal. Bikes clinked against their locks. Then Jungkook said, "The documentary was a mistake." No, she said. The documentary was the truth, just not the kind anyone should have seen. He nodded. I have a segment prepared, she said, more softly now. In this interview, about you. He tensed. I was going to bury you, she said. Not with lies, with facts, with details I never shared. I was going to finally flip the narrative. He looked up at her, waiting for it. But I deleted it, she said. Why? Because what's the point of winning the story if we both still lose the ending? His eyes filled. I'm tired of being angry, she whispered. I'm tired of waking up and remembering I used to love a man who became a stranger in front of a camera. I'm not that man anymore, he said. Then prove it, she said. How? Leave. He blinked. If you love me even a little, leave this city. Leave this street. Let me speak for myself. Let me reclaim what's left of me without you standing in the doorway. He didn't move. So she stepped forward, leaned in, and kissed his cheek, like she had at the rooftop studio, only this time. It didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like surrender. And then she turned and walked back into the studio. The door shut behind her. Jungkook stood there, a long time. Then he turned and walked the opposite direction. Not to chase, not to fix, just to finally let go. And somewhere in that studio, as the camera blinked red and the host said, "We're live in 3, 2, 1, Minji took a deep breath and spoke. Not as an ex, not as a survivor, not as a chapter in someone else's downfall, but as the author of her own ending. A final episode began. But for them, the story had already closed. Not with applause, not with reconciliation, but with silence that this time meant peace.